All right, we're live. Last time I did this, it took almost a dozen times to work. So here we are. Fantastic. My name's Eric Vranish. I'm a physical therapist. I enjoy working with runners, and I enjoy running a lot myself. And so this was going to be a continuation of a series about the knee. And so I thought, well, today we'll talk about the front of the knee and how hey, Graham, thanks for hopping on, man. Talking about the front of the knee and how the knee, the kneecap, for some people can actually end up getting irritated because a tight calf and a high arched foot. Now, there's there's a lot of reasons why we'll have knee pain, and a number of reasons why you have knee pain in the front of the knee, in the inside of the knee, the outside of the knee, the back of the knee. But today I thought I'd just start by talking about the. Hey, Sharon, thanks for hopping on. Talking about one particular problem, and otherwise these things get really long and people end up wanting to watch a movie instead of what I'm doing. So, hey, Linda, thanks for hopping on. Good to see you guys. Thanks for your time. So, it doesn't happen often, but by the time it's all figured out and by the time they come to me in the clinic, it's often enough, a little late in the game. So I wanted to get you guys in a position to get ahead of it if this is valuable to you guys. There was a lady that came to me, and this is probably about, I don't know, 6 months, maybe 8 months ago. She was in her early 30s. And she played soccer her whole life. So she ran her whole life. Midfielder, so even more running, right? And she had obvious knee pain. And sure enough, she got an x-ray, and she actually had some arthritis behind her kneecap. So the kneecap, as it slides and glides up your femur bone, there's cartilage there. And so her cartilage was a little bit more worn than some, particularly for someone that's in her early 30s. It was amazing. Anyways, I checked out her foot, and I checked out her calf flexibility, and oh my gosh, her calf flexibility was non-existent. Super tight calves, and her foot didn't really. It was a fairly high arch, but the fact that it didn't move was more of a bigger deal. It was a bigger deal. And so when I gave her a ton of flexibility, we did a ton of soft tissue for her calf. I gave her a ton of calf flexibility exercises, really just a couple, and she did them like almost every couple hours just to get more mobility out of her calf. And one thing that I told her that is getting a little bit more fanfare now in the running community is those Hoka shoes, Hoka. They kind of have that roller rocker bottom to them. Hey, Carrie, thanks for hopping on. And so all these things combined, the stretch, and the quad stretch is helpful too. But it was just her calves were so tight and her foot didn't offer any shock absorption. So we went into the calf stretch. I told her about the calf stretch. She did that a lot. She got the Hoka shoes because they offer another rocker for the bottom of the foot. What I mean by that is your foot and your ankle have three rockers all on their own. Your heel rocker, your ankle rocker, and your forefoot rocker. And I'll demonstrate that in a minute. But then you have someone that has a really high arch, and the knee's starting to hurt a lot in the front, right in the front. And they need some help, and these shoes are actually fantastic for that. But anyway, let me just kind of show you what I mean. I can turn this around here. Yeah, so anyways, so what ends up happening is that, still see my foot? Yeah, okay. Anyway, so it ends up happening, if you can see my foot here, if someone has, maybe this foot's a little bit easier, if someone has a high arched foot, right, not a flat foot, but a relatively high arched foot that doesn't move a whole lot, it doesn't absorb shock. It doesn't do that pronation thing very easily or very well. And so if your foot can't absorb shock, well then your knee farther up the chain has to take the impact and the hit when there's not a whole lot done at your foot. There's 26 bones down there, and they have a lot of joints, and they're designed to be this mobile adapter for just about anything we walk on or run on. And for some people, it's not very mobile. And in her case, it wasn't. And on top of that, being a soccer player, really thin shoes. They don't offer much in terms of a sole. Turf, so it's not even on grass, which is just awful for these people. So if you can imagine all that wound up together, and she has a high arch that doesn't offer any help. And then on top of that, her calves are tight. So what ends up happening, I'll demonstrate with this foot. What ends up happening is that since her calves are tight, as her foot comes forward, or as she progresses over her foot and over her ankle, her calves are tight, her heel has to come up. Because if your calves are loose, you can come forward farther, and your heel doesn't have to come up. But if you have a high arch, and your calves are tight, your heel has to come up off of the ground earlier. What does that mean? Well, it means that your knee has to bend. So when your knee has to bend, your quads end up firing. When your quads fire, your kneecap has to get driven into that femur where it slides and glides up and down, and it ends up being a huge problem for some people that end up, in their early 30s. This girl's in her early 30s. And so I said, you probably need to consider the Hoka shoes or something very similar, and it has that extra roller rocker bottom to it. And so what ends up happening is that if you have tight calves and your foot isn't very mobile, and really you can't take advantage of the ankle rocker because your calf is so tight, and you can't take care of any kind of pronation to help out with any kind of shock absorption, so your knee takes the hit. So when you have this extra rocker on the bottom of your foot, you can kind of progress over this thing that rocks your foot. And so if your shoe, I'm trying to give an example of what it would probably do, your foot just kind of rocks. There's not first off, there's not a really hard kind of impression of your foot on the ground, because your foot doesn't absorb shock. Your foot slowly kind of goes through this rocker effect to let me get you guys straight here. Sorry about that, or me straight here. So that your body progresses forward easily. The rocker ends up kind of turning on your muscles and slowing down a little bit of the shock absorption that your foot just can't take all on its own, because your foot doesn't do it very well. Even though it's designed to do that, sometimes it just doesn't do that very well. So and so what ends up happening is that the knee, the patellofemoral joint, ends up getting just jammed into the joint every single time she takes a stride when she runs. So she developed a pretty significant patellofemoral kind of a real joint irritation. Now, there's some things that end up happening for some people that, it does happen every now and then. I'll talk about that maybe later on this week, about nerve pain. And nerve pain can irritate the front of the knee right over the kneecap, and sometimes just below the kneecap. And so sometimes the peripheral nerves act like a patellofemoral joint irritation or a kneecap irritation. But that's not always the case, but sometimes that is the case. There's other reasons why you might have patellofemoral pain, and we'll talk about later on this week as well. But yeah, so those Hoka shoes are, it can be a really big deal for people that have a pretty high arch, an arch that doesn't move, and calves that are pretty tight. If you enjoy running, you probably would benefit from having more of a neutral shoe and one that kind of, those Hoka shoes, the rocker kind of bottom, I make it's like a dimmer switch, because you progress really slowly, onto any kind of irritability that could happen. And I actually prescribe it for people that have Achilles tendonitis, and a whole host of other things, because it's the progression onto the joint. It's not, or all the joints of your lower leg. It's not hard. It's a slow kind of progression on and off, and the muscles don't have to turn on really fast, and they get a little bit more help in what they have to do. So yeah. So anyway, just a real quick one here, and just want to give you guys some value. And I can make this longer, but I'm sure a movie's going to be a lot better for you guys. But anyhow, I just want to say thanks to everybody here, Carrie and Dalen, thanks for hopping on. John and Ingrid and Wilbur and Andy. Okay, awesome, bro. Good to see you, man. I hope you're still biking. I like to get out there myself. Tom and Darren and Jim Snyder, dude, you were the confirmation that made me consider a whole lot more about dating Jackie. And that was like the best thing that ever happened to me besides Jesus Christ. So thanks to you, bro. You're awesome. Marcus and Dave and Florencio. I hope I said that right. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, give me a holler. I like helping out the running community, and enjoy your guys' time. So anyways, hope you guys are doing well. There's a lot going on, and hopefully all this stuff will blow over soon. Hoping it will. But anyway, in the meantime, I want to give you guys some value, and maybe your PT is closed, or maybe you can't get the doc that would give you the right direction to help out. So that's why I'm here, and hope to be helpful to you guys, particularly at this time. So take care. God bless you guys, and we'll talk soon. Give me a instant message if you want, about whatever. Yeah, take care.